Hello, I'm Miss Davis, and today we're going to look into ecosystems of the biosphere. Now, the biosphere is planet Earth. Ecosystems are composed of the living and non-living factors, which include climate, soil, water, plants, animals, and so on. The type of ecosystem is determined by the average temperature and average rainfall, which you can see here in this diagram. This means that we need to also look at what determines the climate before we talk about each ecosystem. Now, weather, guys, is due to short-term changes in the atmosphere that affect temperature and rainfall. But the climate is the temperature and rainfall over a long period of time. The temperature and rainfall of an area are determined by variations in the solar radiation and also wind patterns. This means that areas of Earth get different amounts of solar energy. Topography can also influence climate because it refers to the surface features of the land as well as nearby bodies of water. This would be looking at latitude, or it could be talking about altitude, where you're moving up in elevation, like up a mountain. Now, an example that is affected by the topography is what we could consider a rain shadow. As air blows up and over the coastal mountain range, it rises and it releases its moisture as it cools. Now, this side of the mountain is called the wind side because it receives all of the rain. On the other side, though, it's called the leeward side. The leeward side receives the dry air with little rainfall. Okay, now this is due to the rain shadow. This creates a desert. Now, ocean currents can also affect climate, and this is what we look at when we look at El Nino patterns and La Nina. So let's look first at the terrestrial ecosystems and biomes that then move into the aquatic. As you can see, there are several terrestrial biomes we will discuss. We see the tundra, which is going to be close to the North Pole, the taiga, which is just below that, where it has long nights in the winter and also long days in the summer. Temperate deciduous forest, this is going to be the ones that you see 4 distinct seasons. They have the spring, summer, fall, and winter. Grasslands are like our prairies, but also the savanna in Africa. The tropical rainforest, and then of course the desert. So we'll talk about each of these. Now here, guys, this chart is from your book, and it shows you the distribution of these ecosystems across the planet. So you can see here where they're located in these different areas as we talk about them. The Arctic tundra covers about 20% of the Earth's land surface. A similar ecosystem is called the alpine tundra, which is going to be above the tree line on mountains. The Arctic tundra is cold and dark most of the year. The winters are long, cold, and harsh, and the summers are really short and only last about 6 to 8 weeks. Rainfall for the year here is only about 20 centimeters, which is not very much, so it can be considered a very cold desert during the winter months. In the summer, though, the snow melts and creates pools, but it's important to note that only the top layer of this soil actually melts, okay? It defrosts. The bottom layers are called the permafrost, and they continue to stay frozen all year round. Okay, now this creates a problem because it makes the soil very poor in nutrients, but it also makes it where the plants that grow here are very limited. Trees do not grow here because they are unable to get their roots down into the permafrost area, and also because the growing season is very short. In the summer, many grasses will grow here, as well as mosses and lichens. There are also some flowers that will grow. There are a few animals that call the tundra their home all year round. These would be some mouse-like animals like lemmings, polar bears, muskox, Arctic fox, and the snowshoe hare. In the summer, the tundra comes alive, however, because these pools create great habitats, especially for insects and birds that migrate into the area. Caribou, or also known as reindeer, also migrate into the tundra, which brings along wolves because the wolves prey on them, on the caribou. The coniferous forests are located in what we call the taiga, and it's also near mountaintops as well. This type of forest covers about 11% of the Earth's landmass. The coniferous forests are dominated by conifers like pine trees. Their needle-like leaves have the ability to withstand the heavy weight of snow. The forest floor is covered in mosses and lichens. The animals in this area include many birds, bears, deer, moose, beavers, muskrats, and also wolves. The temperate deciduous forests are full of life. They're going to be south of the taiga, and the climate in these areas is moderate with high rainfall. This forest has 4 well-defined seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. The trees found here in this type include oak, beech, sycamore, and maple. They have the really broad leaves that are lost during the fall months, and then they grow back in the spring. They're also the ones that are going to change all the different colors in the fall. The forest floor has shrubs, ferns, flowers, mosses, and of course lichens. Due to the large trees, a type of kind of stratification develops, and it also causes partitioning of resources for animals like birds and insects. Now remember that partitioning means that you have different levels, okay, and that's what we see happening here in the different levels of the trees. On the forest floor, animals like squirrels, rabbits, shrews, skunks, woodchucks, and chipmunks would be present, as well as things like turkeys, pheasants, fox, deer, and black bears. Now the grasslands can be divided into two different categories. The temperate grasslands include steppes, pampas, and prairies, and this is what's found in the Great Plains here in the United States. In these grasslands, the winters are very cold, but the summers are hot and dry. As you can probably guess, the main plant in the grassland is grass, and there are not very many trees, if any, in the area. Large animals like bison and antelope will form herds in these grasslands. Some animals like mice, prairie dogs, rabbits, hawks, snakes, badgers, coyotes, and foxes are also found here. Now, many grasslands have been converted into agricultural lands, especially here in the United States, because they have very fertile soil. The other type of grassland is the savanna, which has two seasons, the cold dry season and a hot rainy season. Again, it is mostly made of grass, but it has sparse populations of trees like you can see here in this picture. Now the root systems of these plants have to go very deep into the ground because during the dry season they have to withstand terrible droughts. Animals that live in the savanna include giraffes, elephants, antelope, zebras, wildebeest, water buffalo, rhinoceros, lions, hyenas, cheetahs, and some leopards. Deserts have really hot days and cold nights. They also have very little rainfall. Deserts have little to no plant life, especially in deserts like the Sahara Desert in Africa, where there's really no plants that live there. Plants are present. They have to be adapted to surviving several conditions. Long droughts, extreme heat, and also extreme cold. These would be like your succulent plants like we see with cacti. Deserts have numerous insects, lizards, turtles, snakes, roadrunners, kangaroo rats, foxes, and also hawks. Now Hobbs, where I'm located, is really mostly a desert. However, it's also on the edge of a short grassland. The tropical rainforests have a warm climate, and they also have plenty of rainfall, thus their name. This forest have the richest ecosystems by the sheer number of organisms that live there, but also the diversity of the different species of organisms that live in these areas. The rainforest has a complex structure with many levels of life. The canopy is the topmost structure of the trees, and it's going to filter out most of the sunlight so it doesn't reach the ground. These are going to be made up of the really tall trees. The understory consists of shorter trees and what we call epiphytes. These are things like pineapples, orchids, and ferns. These plants have the ability to grow on trees. Their roots go into the vascular system of the tree they're growing on, so their roots don't have to be in the soil. This gives them an advantage where they can access more sunlight. The forest floor consists of plants that can survive in levels of low light, like mosses, lichens, and some ferns. Some animals do live on the forest floor here, like armadillos, but most of them are going to live in trees, and these include a wide variety of birds, amphibians, snakes, lizards, lemurs, sloths, and of course monkeys. The aquatic ecosystem includes both fresh and marine ecosystems. Freshwater ecosystems include rivers, lakes, streams, and ponds. The freshwater ecosystems run through many of the land ecosystems that we have just discussed. Animals that are associated with freshwater ecosystems include many kinds of fish, crocodiles and alligators, turtles, and birds. Estuaries are located in areas where freshwater meets saltwater, such as in deltas and marshes along the coasts. Now, organisms that live in these areas have to have a great ability to withstand changes in salinity. Now, salinity is the salt concentration. Since there's a constant mixing of salt and fresh water, the concentration is going to change greatly, even just throughout the day. These areas are going to be very rich, though, in nutrients. So lots of life are going to flourish in these areas. The ocean makes up the marine ecosystem, which includes areas such as coral reefs. The marine ecosystem is divided into several zones. The intertidal zone lies between the low and high tide markers and includes the sandy and rocky shorelines. Many types of algae are going to be found here, especially like kelp. Barnacles, sand dollars, sea urchins, and many types of crabs are going to make their home here. Shallow seawaters are known as the euphotic zone, and they contain the greatest concentration of life compared to the rest of the sea. Here, one would find phytoplankton or algae and also zooplankton, which are going to be the base of the food chain. Many fish along with clams, worms, sea urchins, sea stars, lobsters, crabs, and brittle stars are going to be found here. Coral reefs are part of this zone, so you're also going to have animals like corals that are going to be important here as well. The next zone is known as the pelagic zone and can be subdivided, like you see here, into different zones. So the pelagic zone is the largest zone and it can be subdivided here. We have the epipelagic zone, the mesopelagic zone, and the bathypelagic zone. Now if you look here, the epipelagic zone still gets quite a bit of sunlight penetrating in through the water. So what happens here is you're still going to see lots of types of algae that are present. We'll also find animals like dolphins, baleen whales, sharks, sea turtles, and many types of fish. A lot of schools of fish are going to live in this area. The mesopelagic zone is going to be where there's not as much light. So you're still going to see some schools of fish that are here, but you'll also see things like giant squid. The bathypelagic zone is going to be a dark zone. Sunlight does not penetrate down here, okay, and so it's a deep ocean. And you're going to find the organisms that are actually able to glow and create their own light down here, like you see with the anglerfish. Hagfish will also be part of this, as well as sperm whales. However, sperm whales have to dive down, but they can spend a large amount of their time down there, but they're going to have to move up to feed and also breathe. The last zone is the flat abysmal plain. This is the very bottom of the ocean. Now, it's not always flat. It is interrupted by underwater mountain ranges that we call oceanic ridges. Here, life, though, is going to revolve around hydrothermal vents. This is going to be underwater volcanoes. Now, when you look at this, guys, they still have to have a base of the food chain. Well, since sunlight doesn't come down there, their base of their food chain is made up of chemiosynthesizers. These are organisms that are able to create food from chemicals that are coming out of those thermal vents. Again, it's going to be mostly types of bacteria. However, they do act as the bottom of the food chain, and then they are eaten by types of large tube worms, clams, echinoderms, and also some types of fish. Okay, so they're going to be revolving around those thermal vents at the very bottom of the ocean. Now guys, this finishes up Unit 4, and this is also the last lecture of the semester. Again, I hope that these lectures have helped you understand the material that you are reading. Remember, I am available for any questions, and I hope you've had a great semester. Good luck on your finals.